Hello, host Eric here. Host talking with famous people, and I'm talking with Barry and Overlord, and I'm asking him about the numbering conundrum of Socionics that's causing me fits at the moment, which is when you talk about when I normally talk about the seventh function, I talk about the one that is the other side of your third, okay? But I would call that your trickster function, right?
You're
And
talking about the seventh function, right?
right, the seventh function. Now, in Socionics, is that always referred to as the seventh, or does it have a name? Is it always the trickster function, or what?
They call it the point of least resistance function, in which basically that's the worst function. It's your blind spot. So it's the function that you are the least powerful at, and it's the function that you aren't consciously aware of. And so it leads to a lot of problems because of the fact that you're so weak at it and you're so unaware of it that you realize like what's going wrong.
Okay, so if that's if you look at the numbers as they normally are, the place of least resistance for everybody is always their seventh function.
In Myers-Briggs, yeah, so yours is Fi and mine is Ne.
Okay. Now, when you say in Myers-Briggs, what number function is that in Socionics?
Well, I don't really number the functions in Socionics. I just name them titles. So that's the polar function. Polr, just polar.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Place of least resistance. Okay. So, tell me, go through the titles for each of the functions then, and you say you don't really number them, but do they correspond with numbers in Myers-Briggs?
Yeah, well, so like the lead function is in Socionics is your first function in Myers-Briggs. So in INTP, their lead function is TI, and it's their first function.
Okay.
And then the next function for INTP's extrovert intuition is the creative function in Socionics.
Okay.
The third is the mobilizing function, and so that basically for INTPs is SI, and that mobilizes them to basically do more activities it's more like it's mobilizing them to use their functions that they prefer to use if they're in like their inferior extrovert feeling grip, for example. And the fourth function in Socionics, which is extrovert feeling for INTPs, for example, is the suggestive function. So those four right there, the lead, the creative, the mobilizing, and the suggestive are basically the INTP and Myers-Briggs, they're conscious functions.
Okay. So, why is it called suggestive?
So it's called suggestive because basically INTPs are not very good at extrovert feeling. That's pretty well known in Myers-Briggs. But what Myers-Briggs doesn't really talk about as much is that INTPs actually want other people to use extrovert feeling around them, harmony. They want people to take over the harmony part for them because they enjoy feeling harmony in situations, but they're not particularly good at providing it themselves. Same with ENTPs for introvert sensing. They like that introvert sensing taken care of for them, but they don't want to do it themselves because they're not particularly good at it and they don't particularly want to do it.
Right. Right. Okay. Well, that certainly is true. Okay, so what are the fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth functions called?
Yeah, okay, so the fifth function, which is extrovert thinking for the INTP, is the ignoring function in Socionics, which is called that because it's the function that they don't need to care about because they already have the opposite thinking function as their best function. They don't need to command both thinking functions if they're already super good at their TI, you know.
Right.
So the next one is for the sixth function for INTPs is introvert intuition. That's the demonstrative function. So it's the thing that INTPs do without really realizing it, but they actually do it well. Like they do it well, but they don't realize they're doing it well, and they don't care that they're doing it well.
Like TE for me.
Yeah, like you can do TE, you can set up these go to meetings and all that stuff, but that's not where your focus of attention is.
Right.
So the next one is the seventh function, which is SE for INTPs, is the polar function in Socionics, which is I talked about this before. It's the worst function and the one they're totally unaware of. So that's the thing that INTPs have trouble with, like dealing with practical matters in the real world, because they don't value it and they're not particularly good at it. So it's where that's their blind spot. And so the last function is the eighth function is for INTPs. That's FI, which in Socionics is the role function. And basically, the role function is the function you use because it's almost like the function you have to use around people you've just met, because if you don't use it, you won't be able to properly socialize with people and meet with them. Because, for example, if an INTP has role FI, so they come off as somewhat friendly and polite. If they didn't have that role FI, they would have a really hard time getting people to know them more, because they wouldn't exude a polite and friendly demeanor. And they wouldn't go out and...
How does my role SE manifest?
I'm not exactly sure, but I think it involves like, well, I guess it involves like doing like really practical matters that like it requires actually doing things in the real world. Like you don't really want to have to do things in the real world, but you do them anyways because you want fuel for your extrovert intuition. I don't know if that resonates with you.
That does resonate very much with me. A lot of times I'll go, like I did today, I made a little video of the fire. I didn't really feel like going and doing it, but the potential FE and TE and TI and other rewards ultimately made me want, and SI too, I wanted to position it in context of having already made another fire video earlier this year, a couple different fire videos I've had. I like the idea that there'd be a theme and then there's a topic called fire. When I thought all that shit through, it was sufficient motivation to get me to go up and take a little video of the fire. Even though it was only like 5 minutes out of my way, I really didn't feel like going and doing it. But I did it anyway.
So I guess that would involve you doing things that you don't necessarily want to do for a different motivation, which is extrovert intuition.
Yeah, probably. So that's very interesting. Well, thank you very much, Basement Overlord, for that very fine walkthrough regarding the namings of the 8 functions. I think that the problem was I did not have a numbering problem. I had a naming problem, where I was mixing together willy-nilly the names that Myers-Briggs gives the first 4 functions and the names that Socionics gives the 8 functions, especially getting tripped up by that role function, which, of course, in the Myers-Briggs model is I believe, the name for the 3rd function. Is that correct?
Role is your 8th function.
In Socionics.
It's your FI.
Right.
Sorry. Your role is your 5th. Wait.
I think in MBTI it's your 3rd. I think, but I regardless, I don't mean to confuse the issue again.
For role, it's extrovert and TP. So that would be what your 8th function.
My 8th, right? But what I'm saying is, I think that MBTI uses the same name for the 3rd function, and I think that was a source of my confusion before.
Oh, really?
I believe so. I believe so. I could be wrong about that too. Who knows? I'm setting new records for wrongness every day. Thanks for watching Talking with Famous People. I've been host Eric, and special thanks to Basement Overlord for his fine articulation of the principles behind the 8 cognitive function names in Socionics.